Welcome to Dead Headspace. I am your host, Patrick R. McDonough, joined by my friend Brennan LaFaro. Say hello, Brennan.
Hello, everybody.
And our other friend, Candice Nola. Say hello, Candice.
Hello.
Today we are talking to the author of Fever House. His name is Keith Rosson. Say hello, Keith.
Hello, everybody. How are you? Nice to digitally, audially meet everyone.
So what got you into horror? And likewise, by the way, from all three of us, what got you into horror?
You know, I just started with, I think my mom worked for the school district in like their library sorting center in the 80s. And she was in charge kind of getting all the books sent to all the different schools in the county and all that. And she was in charge of returns too. Like they would have to return books. And at that time, I think what it was is you ripped the covers off and so that they were unsellable and then sent them back to the distributor. And so she stole a bunch, like 100 choose your own adventure novels for me. And kind of like surreptitiously like smuggled them out of the sorting center. And so I just had this like sudden influx of choose your own adventure books. And it was just like, and I already been reading and stuff, you know, like I read a lot of comics and stuff, but that was just like, whoa, this is incredible. And then probably, you know, like 95% of us, Stephen King as a really young kid, you know, probably younger than I potentially should have been reading Stephen King, was just plowing through it, you know? So I'd say those two things. Yeah, choose your own adventure, X-Men comics, and Stephen King. Trace so many things back to those three, you know?
I'm just picturing your shelves full of coverless books.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
As a reader, it will never like not hurt my heart to just think of all the bookstores ripping the covers off and just toss it. Because I mean, you got to smuggle them out if you're a librarian, but it's illegal to resell them, so you're technically supposed to chuck them in the dumpster. And oh my gosh, what a waste!
There we go. Yeah, right. So yeah, and like, you know, at 8 years old or whatever, I gave no shit about aesthetics at all. You know, I was just like, oh my gosh, I can turn to page 64 so many times, you know. But yeah, it was life-changing for me.
So I'm wondering, was there one King book that you really connected with above all others, or did you just fly through the available bibliography?
Yeah, you know, my mom plowed through them. The one that I really resonated with a lot was Jim Gardner in Tommyknockers, because he represented a lot of like my family's like those are the drunks that I knew in my life were a lot like him, you know. And so I was just riveted by that character and his kind of like redemptive arc at the end, you know. So yeah, that, and then just like with it, he just tackled, you know, the like minutia of childhood really well, you know. It's crazy. Like I was talking about this with someone else. You think like in the movie, like those kids are like, I don't know, like maybe early teenagers or whatever, but they were like 10 in the book, you know?
Yeah.
And I could hardly hold spit in my mouth at 10 years old. You know what I mean? They were just, it was like, yeah. So, but yeah, those two are definitely like formative ones for me, I think.
Tommy,
He said you had a connection with the Tommyknockers. Are you a Tommyknockers defender?
Yeah, I don't. Is there a big like outcry against, like, I mean, because I think it was one of his last like dope books, right? Like when he was doing a lot of things. And
yeah, I mean, it's generally regarded as a big long mess, but what I've found is that a lot of people don't like it, but the people who do connect with it feel really strongly about it. So I mean, beyond your personal connection, I wonder if you could make a plea for people to give Tommyknockers another chance.
I don't know. I just appreciate the like. I love all of that scaffolding and world building that went into it, you know. And I think like Salem's Lot does a lot of that too, where it's like just the ripple effect of how this sickness or disease or whatever, a vampirism, or the like, you know, signals from this ship affect the greater world, you know. I love that shit, and I love that when writers get the space to like play with that, you know? So I think it is a big, huge kinetic mess, but it's also like incredibly vibrant, you know?
Sure, that
Yeah,
makes
and that
sense.
doesn't rear its head at all in Fever House.
Yeah, right. There we go.
All of a sudden, gears are clicking into place.
Yeah, totally.
Patrick, I'm
You
going to
know,
go
it
to
was a
you.
trip when I sold that book to Random House when I had my first talk with my editor. She said in that first conversation, like, I want you to add 30,000 words to this. Is that something you'd be willing to do? And I was like, hell yes. You know, like how often do writers get like, please give us more, you know?
So it's the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'll admit, I don't know how many or if any, but your previous books, have they been with Random House? And if not, well, first off, have they been with Random House?
No, this is my first book with Random House. I have 3 novels and a story collection with an indie press called Meerkat Press.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so Random House is doing the sequel to Fever House called The Devil by Name that comes out next summer.
Oh,
and
nice.
then we just did another 2-book deal. So with Random House.
Congratulations. So
thank you. Right on. Yeah, I'm stoked.
yeah, I mean, Brennan and I have talked about it before, just back and forth. Like, what's your top 3 dream publishers? And for me as a writer, it's I got Pantheon Books, Random House, and Scholastic. Because like Scholastic with my childhood, Random House because just throughout all my life as a reader, they're amazing.
Yeah, totally.
And Pantheon's put out some pretty badass like war fiction books
Right.
that more people should know about. So
yeah,
for Random House, to me, I'm just like, I think that's really neat. I'm wondering if you can tell us about your experience with them so far, and if they have met what you expected. If you had expectations to work with them, have they hit those?
You know, I first, yeah, I love telling this story. My editor and I worked on Fever House for like a couple month or two, kind of, you know, tightening it up. And then on a Thursday, he's like, I'm going to send this out to like 8 editors. And then on Monday, we'll do a big overarching send out of like 30 people, you know. But so he sent out the first 8 on Thursday, and on Friday we get an email from Caitlin McKenna, my editor at Random House, and she just says, "Is there a sequel?" And then nothing on Friday, or I'm sorry, over the weekend. But then on Monday, she writes back, and she'd had her team read it over the weekend, and she's like, "I want to set up a call with this guy." And Tuesday we talked, and she prefaced it with like, I don't have conversations with writers like this. It's just too heartbreaking unless I'm ready to make a deal, which is just fucking crazy. You know what I mean? Like, your entire life.
Yeah. Did your heart stop then?
Yeah, it was incredible. It was like,
holy shit, man.
After doing it for like so long and 4 books before that, you know what I mean? And like failed books and everything. And then on Wednesday we had an offer, you know, so it took like 6 days, including over the weekend, for this deal. And it's like, my editor is on point and so smart, and like between her and my editor and their teams, that's a big difference.
Sure.
Like Meerkat, it's like Trisha, who runs Meerkat, and I wearing all the hats. You know what I mean? And she does like marketing, distribution, sales, graphic design, outreach, all this shit, you know? And so with Random House, there's more people whose sole job it is to do their own specific field. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that took like, it's almost like guilt. You feel like this weird sense of guilt.
I understand. I'm wondering also, since you did come from the background of independent presses, and it took, you know, it sounds like a long time, I'm sure years. Do you think that kind of actually makes this W for you? Well, actually, I guess 2 more W's. Congrats on that. That's gonna make it all the more sweet, and like, you know what the other side's like, man. How do you think things would have played out if you just got it big the first time? I mean, sure, that'd be great, but like, are you thankful for your experience with Meerkat? Because you said you put on a bunch of different hats, and I've only done
Yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
I've only put on like three different hats, and as just a writer, I can't appreciate my own writing or others until I was like an editor and a slush reader. Sorry,
Hmm.
cut you off. Go ahead, sir.
No, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. Yeah, and the cool thing to realize is that like uh even if, and you know, it'll like, if it happens, it'll happen. Like, say I do these 4 books with Random House and it just doesn't, they're like, sorry buddy, good luck to you for book number 5, you know what I mean? And they, you know, wave their hats to me, and I'm still going to be writing, just because like, thank God, it's still so fun, you know what I mean? And like, I, unlike a lot of people, love the submission process. And like, I love submitting stuff. I loved querying agents. If I you know, I talk to my partner all the time, where it's like, if I was as fearless in other avenues of my life as I am in like getting published, like I'd be fucking unstoppable. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, okay, you get a rejection, you do another one, you do 2, you just keep writing, you know? It's still, the whole thing is still so fun. So I'd like to think that I'll still be doing this regardless. But yeah, I could totally see myself choking if I had just started out with a big publisher, you know. Um, and so I got that like reminder that like the process is worth it, and writing is still fun as hell, you know.
Candace, you want to take over? Sorry for the awkward silence.
Yeah.
That's great, by
Just
the way.
waiting to see who was next.
I think we're just well, I'm personally am reeling from the fact that you just said you love querying. I don't know what to say to you at this point.
Yeah, I've never heard
Yeah,
anyone say that.
yes.
Dude, it's I like my first agent, I queried like 96 agents before I landed somebody.
I believe it.
Um, and
It's
then
hard.
yeah, and it was for my novel. I mean, it was for this book called Smoke City, which is about the remorseful reincarnation of Joan of Arc's executioner, who sees a woman claiming to be Joan on a talk show, and so he tries to travel to LA to apologize to her. So it's a weird book, you know what I mean?
That's a cool.
Yeah, but so it's just, there are, you know, there are some times where it's just like you think you got one lined up, or they ask for more time with the full manuscript or whatever, or you're counting down shit on submittable or whatever. But yeah, that I just love that whole process. It's like I just gamify it, you know.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. So I can't even speak on that because I've never done it. I'm too scared.
Not yet.
I just do my own thing and just keep going.
yeah, right
Wouldn't
on.
even know how.
Yeah,
But we are here to also talk about your book, sir.
yeah.
So let me get into that. Fever House, first of all, checks all the boxes.
Thank
I
you.
don't even know what to classify it as. It's a little bit of crime, it's a little bit of military, it's a little bit of supernatural, there's a little bit of occult in there. Where, it's a multi-part question here. So,
Okay.
where, when, and how did you get the concept? And don't want to go with the and right now. Now let's start with that, and then I'll
Okay.
ask my next one. So when,
Yeah.
where, and how did this idea strike you? Because it has layers. A lot of
Yeah.
them.
There is it's one of those big sprawling like multi POV books, and it really started, the way I write is I just pick like 5 things that I'm like, I could write about this and be interested. And I start those threads, like it was like, I want to do something with Black Ops and like number stations and government documents and stuff. And I also want to do stuff with these crime guys, like this guy Hutch Holtz, who's one of the main characters in the book. He's this big dented head leg breaker dude. He showed up in like 3 previous books that I tried to write, and I want to be like a strict genre writer or a strict literary author so fucking bad. I'm just like, I'm gonna be a serious author, straight literary fiction about, I don't know, marriages or some shit, but I cannot not put like a ghost or a haunted robot dog or something in it. You know what I mean?
You're one of us,
So
man. You can't escape.
yeah, I'm just like Stephen King and comic books. I just can't, like, I just got to thread that stuff in. So there were a couple things where it was like Hutch Holtz kept bugging me as a character, and so and then the government agency stuff, and so like that first like 25 or 30 pages of the beginning of Fever House, where Hutch and his co-worker Tim are going up to do debt collections. That's lifted straight from another manuscript that never got off the ground until they find this severed hand. And once I had this hand, these leg breakers, and this notion of like a black ops kind of government conspiracy thing, that's when it started to fire. Okay. So I just really pick like 5 or 6 things that can hold my attention, and then I start tying all the threads together.
I like it.
Yeah.
So on that note, so you already start with a lot of moving parts before you even start writing. So what does your writing process look from there? Once you have that, do you outline? Do you just wing it? What do you do?
Yeah, I just start writing and give these characters problems. And we go from there. And so it's a constant like backlog of checking, like, oh yeah, that's an unresolved plot point, there's another one, and just bouncing back and forth. So I just make that shit up as I go. Like, there's no outlining or anything. I will, when the writing is going really well, I'll get a chapter or 2 ahead. Like, I'll know what's happening. This chapter will open up like what the next thing's happening. And when I stop getting ideas for stuff that happens next, that's when I realize, oh, I got to backtrack because I'm stuck. So, but yeah, it's a lot of, I write shitty first drafts and then go back and clean them up a lot of times, like 15 edits, Yeah. So also, I'm hearing echo crackle shit. Is that me? Okay, cool.
I don't hear anything.
I don't know.
Okay, edit that part out then.
Okay.
So that's a lot like me. I wing it a lot. I get an idea and I just kind of just go. There isn't anything planned.
I don't know if you're the same way, but like I find that when I try to stick to an outline, I feel like compressed, and like stifled, where I'm like, oh, I have this other idea, but it's I got to stick to this plan, and it's not nearly as fun.
You feel like you have to fit in the box, and then the idea you have doesn't fit in there anymore, and then you're like, well, I gotta rewrite the box, or I gotta like start over. But so I don't do any of that. I'm just like, yeah, I'm just gonna go. I may do a loose, very loose, not even an outline, but like a list of, okay, I want to do A, B, and C, like where to go next.
Yeah.
But it's loose enough that if something else comes in, I can just write it in there, and then I can still add to that list of where I want to take the story next. But I don't ever outline like point by point by point or anything. I just have fun with it. So
yeah, I'm the same way, because I'll have like the manuscript, and then I have another document that's like ideas. I like a document of like places, names, ages, all that stuff, the details. And then just like a loose, at the end of it, like a loose catalog of like, oh, ideas that didn't really work, but then I want to be able to insert in there, and then I just kind of bounce back and forth between the two.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah. All right. There we go.
Whatever works, right? Just keep it moving. I like it. Because not a lot of folks write like me, so I'm always pleased when I find somebody that does.
Yeah, totally.
It's good. Do one of you guys have a question? Do you want me to keep going with the story?
I had a
I'd
quick
actually
one.
like to piggyback off that.
Okay.
So, going with that whole idea of you get those ideas and you just fucking go. The book has this kind of propulsive punk rock feel to it, and I wonder if you credit the just go attitude that to pull that off, or if that's something that you really focus on adding during one of those 15 edits.
Yeah, we added a bunch, but then also like my editor was very adamant about cutting all excess. How do I phrase it? Because it's such a big book, but like the propulsiveness of like a thriller, you know what I mean? And
Oh,
so there's a
yeah.
lot of action and a lot of like short chapters. And I just wanted to, like, all of my books before that are kind of not navel gazers, but like, a little bit more steeped in like literary fiction, of the like, there's still in Fever House, there's still characterization and all that stuff, but I just wanted to like try something new and just go. So there's really an emphasis on like trying to make it fast, So there's a lot of backstory and people have feelings and all that stuff, but like I just wanted to make it as fast as I could.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick, go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to go back to when you were talking to Candace and you said that if you can't, if the newer thoughts and ideas aren't coming to you, you backlog. So I'm wondering, to me that sounds like you're not. If you were to be asked, like, do you believe in writer's block? I feel like that's kind of your answer. Is that inaccurate?
No, that's totally it. Yeah. Or I
I,
mean, if I get nailed with writer's block, it's like it's clearly I'm pushing the I've gotten off track somewhere with the story. Um or I just need to take a break from this particular one. And that's why I also have like other projects going always.
yeah, that's.
Um
I like asking that when I get the chance about stuff like there's a bullet point list of like the same 5 or 6 questions when y'all start writing, and writer's block is definitely one of those. So I'm in the same boat, but I like to reiterate those points if I can, because if you get stuck in the thought before you're even really experienced as a writer and you think there is a writer's block, like I feel like most people are just gonna stop writing until there's like a muse. I'm doing air
yeah,
quotes.
right.
So I like them
My
to hear positive ways that, hey, that's not a real thing. You can, you know,
yeah. And
insert
I think
whatever works.
a lot of people too, like less maybe people writers who don't have as much experience. Uh, there's and everybody writes differently, and this is just my how I do stuff. But there's an emphasis on like with less experienced writers maybe where it's like if I get the first 15 pages down perfect, the rest of the story will appear. And so my experience is that to give yourself permission to write that super sloppy, messy first draft, where ideas are just veering all over the place. Because I promise that when you finish the book, you will be more informed about your characters and your story. And that will affect the beginning of your story when you go back to it. So it's like if you if you keep doing the first 15 pages, it's like people are going to your characters are just going to be saying the same shit, but they're going to be saying he said instead of he exclaimed or whatever. But if you actually finish the draft and it's sloppy and ugly, you'll still know more about what your people are doing, and you'll be like, oh, he wouldn't even say that to begin with. He'd feel this way instead because I know what he's like at the end of the book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm.
I'll just say one last thing that piggybacks off of that is I wrote a novel that was definitely based off of a lot of truth, and it took place in Boston. And long story short, um I just let it flow to the point where it was basically not fiction. It was just me retelling everything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this isn't interesting. There's a lot of real
Uh-huh.
world boring shit in here. So like
Yeah.
I love how you said just let the first draft be whatever the fuck it's supposed to
Yeah,
be.
totally.
I can relate to that, and like if I'm a newer ish writer, that's great advice that I never heard until I experienced it.
Yeah, and it really is giving yourself permission, because so many of us think or thought like it's got to be perfect and then we can move forward. And it's like it gets perfect after you've worked your ass off on the whole piece, not
Yeah,
just the beginning.
Mhm.
So,
I heard this
yeah.
crazy stat that even with the book The Hobbit, like I I forget how many years, but it was just I think in the decades where it would have to go through so many different sets of eyes until the manuscript was perfect, and that's The Hobbit. It's one of the most,
Right.
I'm probably up there with like one of the most sold books ever.
Yeah.
Candace, why don't you take over?
All right.
No pressure, just hey, there you go.
We're just
No
talking about The
pressure.
Hobbit now,
Well, I
It's all
mean,
good.
now we're on to The Hobbit. I was talking about the story, then we got on writer's block, and now I just don't know where to go. So let me just,
Yeah,
The path of
close that
confusion
circle
leads to
out
crazy.
there
on
you go.
writer's block. I'm probably rather unusual when it comes to how I write and the fact that writer's block simply doesn't exist. At least not in my mind.
Mhm.
Because I'm always working on like 5 to 6 different works at the same time.
Yeah.
And about 90% of my process is mental.
Mhm.
So by the time I sit down to write something, the story is already there, it's already done, the characters are already there speaking
Wow.
and developed. So
That's
when I sit
envious as
down,
hell.
like I'm literally just writing the story, like it just comes out. But
Wow.
when I do get to a point where I'm like, okay, what do I want to do next? Like I could do A or I could do B, and both sound really good. I'll kind of switch hats and I'll pull up the next story and I'll let that one flow while I'm working on the idea for, A. I'll work on B. And then if the same thing happens, I'll switch hats and I'll work on C. And I'll switch back and I'll work on an edit job for a little bit. I'll go find food. I'll come back and then A is ready to go. So
Yeah.
I always switch hats because I think certain folks may experience writer's block, and I know not everyone, I don't actually even like that word. I don't even think it's a block. I think it's just your own internal thought process that you need to work through, and everybody works through those things differently. Not
Yeah.
everyone can work on 5 different things at once. Their brain just
No one
doesn't
but you
work
can.
that way. There's some folks that can do it, but
Maybe Stephen
not
Hawking's
everyone
and
can do like 5 things at once. They have to be like, this is what I'm in, and they have to be immersed in that one thing from beginning to end. My brain goes too fast, so I have to be immersed in like several things or I get off track because it's like, oh, but there's this, and that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know I'm like special in that way because I do a lot of it just mental and I just keep things moving no matter what. But I really don't like the phrase writer's block. I think it's just we all have our different ways of trying to work through what comes next in the
Yeah.
book. We just need to
Right.
give it some time. And for me, the way I give it time is I just simply work on the next one that I'm already working on. Other folks may need to take a walk or go to the park and spend a day doing something not related to writing, but mentally they're working through their issue with the book or
Yeah.
what to do next. I don't think it's a block. I think you just need some time to process. That's how I look at it.
so
Yeah.
I'm looking up a stat that says only 2.5% of people can multitask effectively. Um yeah, so you're doing that internally. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
Okay,
if you're
well,
new
thank you
listening
for
to
that.
this, don't try to emulate Candace. You'll
Yeah.
end up
Yeah,
being
do
pissed.
not try this at home,
A
folks,
You'll be
member of an
pissed.
because
elite squad. Yeah.
apparently I'm special.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
back to the story. So this is a fun one that I always like to ask. I think I ask it on almost every episode. Is there a favorite part of the story that you enjoyed the most, or a favorite person that you most enjoyed writing?
No, I mean, some of the stuff that I liked was I liked the kind of rapport between Hutch and his buddy Tim, and their kind of like scenes where they got to rough people up and go to various, I don't want to give any spoilers away, but go to various houses and see some surprises, you know.
Yeah.
Those were fun. And I loved trying to tackle all the like there's a lot of, I can't remember the lofty word they have for it, but it's like a kind of buttressing up the story with these government documents. And like I love doing all that
Yeah.
research and
Yeah.
finding like how they actually like lay out a classified document, you know. Was just, I just love it when people pay attention to that stuff and are able to put it in fiction, you know. Like I love addendums and things like that, so that was a ton of fun to work on.
That's gonna be a subgenre of found footage. I feel like it
Yeah,
has to be.
totally. Right.
And
yeah.
so you did a great job mixing everything. Go ahead, Candace. I don't want to keep yapping.
No, you're fine. I was gonna say I really enjoyed those within the story, how you had them each, you know, in there, like what's happening over here, and here's the Black Ops, and here's this, and
Yeah.
oh, okay.
There's like a Rolling Stone article, like
Yeah.
my editor specifically asked for like a band interview or a band feature. I'm like, all right, I'll put that in. So yeah.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. There was a lot in here. Like I said, it checked all the boxes.
Yeah, there's
I
a lot
can't
going on.
classify it as anything, but it's a great read. It's a lot of fun, and it really pulls you in and lets you just get really immersed into just what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
And it's just a little bit of everything, and it's almost like you threw everything in here but the kitchen sink, or maybe the kitchen sink, but it all worked, and you're just like, what the hell? And
Yeah.
you don't want to stop reading it because the way it's written kind of pulls you along to where you're like, let's just keep going. It's just it's a wild ride. So
yeah. And it ends on a bit of a cliffhanger, one might say.
yeah.
And when I originally wrote it, like again, I had that call with my editor, and she's like, the two things she asked for was like, are you up for adding like 30,000 more? And I'd like it to be vaguely in this, and this spot where I think it's a little thin. And would you consider writing a sequel? And I was like, dude, you just gave me a career. Like I will write dog food. You know, I'll write dog food copy for you if you want. Like, you know. But the book ends on this cliffhanger, and when I wrote it, I was like, there was no sequel. Like that was the end. You know.
Yeah. Oh wow.
And so in retrospect, I'm not sure which would piss people off more, like having Fever House end the way it does and just knowing that that's the end of the story, or people are like very upset that like, I didn't know that it was a sequel. I didn't know there was another book and it ends on this way. It's so frustrating. So no.
Moral of the story is you can't please anyone.
Yeah, everyone's gonna be, you know, bummed about something. So
hey, the finale.
I've learned. Yeah. I was going to say I have learned to end mine in such a way that I could make a sequel if there's enough outcry. Because the first couple of things I tried to write that were one and done, apparently the readers were like, "No, you're not."
Yeah.
Almost everything, all of my longer work right now has had to have a part 2, and some of them are going into part 3 because people are like, what are you doing? You're not done. Okay.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So now I just kind of leave like a little bit to where it's like, okay, I could end it here and I could leave it here. And if it doesn't do great, then I'm one and done and I can move on. Or if there's a demand, then I can pick it up and tie this in and keep on.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, because you can't please everyone, and there's always those few that are like, "Oh, that's the end," and then you have the rest that are like, "We want more."
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I just wanted to point out how Keith is from Portland, Oregon, and so is
Oh,
the
you did
three
not just say Oregon.
Oregon, the Oregon Trail, the Oregon. No, it's the Oregon Trail. That's what we
It's
always
not
called it.
though.
But that is what kids in my area said. All right.
Oregon,
I don't know if people say you're part of Massachusetts, man, but
Oregon.
No. We said I grew up saying Oregon, and then I married a girl from Portland, and I am not allowed to do that anymore.
see,
Oh,
you're
Yeah.
acting, dude. We're from the same area.
Yep.
Please.
Yeah.
So
I'm not.
My
I say
mom and her family is from like Arkansas and stuff, and they still say Washington to this day. So,
yeah.
I was just gonna say that
We
Jeremy
say
Robert.
that here, Washington or Washington. I
yeah,
don't. Yeah, I don't. But
yeah.
people here who do.
People I know do. Yeah,
Yes, people in the area say
yeah.
So
drives me bananas.
there are
But
three other friends, people that we have on the show sometimes, and they're awesome. They're from that area. Jeremy Robert Johnson, Tyler
Oh yeah,
Jones,
he's
and
great.
Chuck Palahniuk. Like you four are very good writers, and you're all in
Yeah,
the
right
same
on.
area. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So, Brennan, I want you to jump in before I
Well,
take
actually,
over.
no, that's perfect because I wanted to go there anyway. Because the book takes place in Portland, I wanted to ask you, is that just somewhere that you set it because you're familiar with the area, or um, do you think that the Pacific Northwest really is part of the plot, like ties into what you wanted to do with this book?
Yeah, all of my books, I mean, the story collection, just a lot of that was stories. You don't need to have a specific locale, but all my novels take place to some degree in Pacific Northwest or Portland itself. Road 7 starts out in Portland and then goes to a made-up island off the coast of Iceland, but the first third of it, takes place in Portland. And with Fever House, honestly, a lot of it is focused around the protests, the George Floyd protests. And I don't know how familiar you guys were with how Portland experienced all that, but it was fucking intense here.
It was
And
all
we
over
had,
the news, dude, for so long.
yeah, and we had a lot of stuff going on for like every single night for like 4 months, without fail. Protests, police violence, Justice Center getting hit with Molotov cocktails, people getting hit with rubber. It was just crazy. And a lot of this is kind of a reflection of stuff that I saw or my friends saw, and participated in. And that notion of, with these government agencies and stuff, this notion of like might makes right. And like, I'm going to this agency that has these remnants in Fever House. There's this idea of like, I'm going to take what I need and do what I need to do because I can and because I've been greenlit to do it. And that kind of reflected a lot of what I saw happening during that time. Was this kind of, we had like law enforcement from a dozen different agencies, and they didn't have any insignias on their uniforms. And they were literally pulling protesters into vans and then taking them into the Justice Center to like interview them and interrogate them.
Yeah, that
So
shit.
yeah,
That
it
shit
was
sounds
crazy.
terrifying.
Yeah, it was wild. And so just that, it's just kind of and a lot of that is reflected in the book, and there's some scenes that are like pretty close to like what I saw, not the shooting spree scenes that happen later on in the book. No spoilers, but some of the shit that happened, were stuff that I witnessed or my friends witnessed. So Portland is an integral part of the book, I feel like. How's that for a really short version of your answering your question?
No, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Cool.
And it occurs to me that we've been talking about the book for 20 minutes now, and a lot of times we'll kind of kick things off with a little elevator pitch so that people who may not be familiar with your writing or with the book can say, "Hey, that sounds up my alley." we've already sold the book, in my opinion, but let's tell them what it's about. Do you mind doing kind of the short version of the synopsis?
Yeah, it's so tough. I hate elevator pitches for a book like this because there's like five main characters. You know what I mean? But essentially, these two leg breakers roll up to a apartment in Portland, Oregon, to collect a debt, and they find a severed hand in a bread bag in a guy's freezer, and they soon discover that the hand induces uncontrollable desires for violence and bloodshed the more you're in proximity to it. And so instead of running the hell away like they should, they say, hey, and they take it to their boss. And then shit just gets worse for everybody there because it turns out the hand was actually in possession of this secret Black Ops government agency that is very interested in getting it back and will do anything to get it back. And then there's a couple other characters, but shit starts spiraling very badly out of control after that.
I hope this becomes a TV show or movie.
Yeah, we're fingers crossed, man. I can't. Yep, fingers crossed. We'll see.
I personally, I'm a huge fan of like true crime, and especially growing up, like I'm Irish, I'm from Massachusetts. Not that we like him, but Whitey Bulger was always of interest, and like for ages it was supposed stories, and my dad grew up in that area, so I'm really interested in that life. Only from the view of the TV screen or a book, not in person. Those guys,
totally.
I don't want to go near at all. But
yeah, totally.
I loved what you did with that. I mean, like they are super interesting only because like how can people do that? But once you introduced this supernatural element to it, and then things started unraveling. It's really unique. So I'm glad you did the elevator pitch. I don't know what the fuck I'd say.
Dude, I love like the crime stuff. Like I have yet to like write a sustained novel length crime thing, but like I love writing about like dudes that could just like break your leg with a fish bat, Like I love writing about those dudes. It's so fun,
Don Winslow's Power of the Dog trilogy.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that one has this one scene in the first book that, like Brennan said on the show, it's just about worse than anything that I've read in a horror book. The bridge scene.
Okay. Yeah. It's been so long since I remember the little kid playing soccer with like dudes' heads.
Oh yeah.
That's book 3.
That was a formative one for me. Yeah.
I don't want to ruin the bridge scene. So, Brandon, do you have anything else, man? Or Candace?
Nothing. Okay. I want to ask something, and I don't know if you can answer this without spoilers. But you've mentioned that extra 30,000 words a couple times, and it's so interesting to me that you had this, finished book, and you essentially added a short novel to it. So for people who read it, I wonder if you can tell us approximately where the bulk of that 30,000 words ended up.
Yeah, and I'm fine with the spoilers because it's not like the book hasn't been out yet. Like it's out. Like, you know what I mean? Essentially what my editor wanted was there's an agent named Samantha Wiles, who's kind of the I think she calls herself the bullet. Like she's the bullet for the head of this agency that does like his kind of wet work for him. And she wanted to know more about Wiles. And so I wrote a lot about that. And then also once things really start getting cooking in Portland and it turns out that if you die in proximity to the hand, you come back to life, bloodthirsty and violent. And so, it spreads like a mutagen really, really, really fast. And so I think the whole book takes place over like 30 hours, maybe, And so once things really get cooking in Portland, she wanted more time in that kind of cook pot of utter fucking chaos, you know. So yeah, there's a lot more scenes of what that craziness is like in Portland.
That's cool.
Those are the two big ones that I remember.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Nice.
I can't get over the fact that an editor told you to add that much, because I've said this to you a few times in this episode. I've never heard that from any
It's so
writer.
I was in New York last week doing a book reading at Mysterious Bookshop, and Richard Price, who's done like Clockers and Lush Life, and he did the HBO adaptation of The Outsiders, the Stephen King thing.
Mhm.
He was supposed to be like, he and I were supposed to be doing the Q&A, and like 5 minutes before, he calls me and he's like, Keith, I'm in a train at Times Square, and the train just killed somebody, and so I'm not going to be able to make it to the reading. By the time I get there, the bookstore will be closed and all this. So my editor and I and my agent had like a really fast huddle, and we just did the Q&A with the three of us.
Mhm.
And I told her that story, and she's like, I can't believe I told you to do that. That's crazy. So yeah, she can't
Holy
believe it either.
Oh,
Yeah.
Good Lord.
oh my god.
Well,
Yeah. So I caught her on a good day, I guess. You know what I mean?
Sorry, I just scoffed. I was just gonna say, I don't know how you would top that. How do you, what do you do to, how do you respond to that? That a
it,
train just killed someone?
Oh
well,
yeah, I'm
fair.
like,
No, like,
yeah, and
did your face did you physically react to it? I don't know
no,
how
I
I'd
mean, and
react.
I guess unfortunately, like that's not an uncommon thing to happen, you know, either accidents or people deciding, you know, like
Mhm.
um, it's not a terribly unheard of thing, I guess. So yeah.
Before we start wrapping up, I do want to ask about your older books. If there's one that you can pick that you wish more people read, what would it be?
Oh man, that's really nice. I love all of them. Uh, and I talked about Smoke City already. Um, I would say I had a kind of COVID book. Do you guys have any like COVID books or COVID stories or whatever where they came out right when things kind of started to heat up with COVID and the world
Yeah.
kind of shut down, you know? So my novel Road 7 came out right as COVID kind of came through, and nobody was buying books or going to bookstores or anything like that, you know? And shit was really dire, and it was right when my partner and I had started fostering a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, these two sisters, and so I was, and my wife worked, so I was suddenly a stay-at-home dad of two children, and COVID happened, and I was supposed to be doing like promotion for this book, you know, and it just kind of died on the vine, you know. And so I love the hell out of it. It's about a dude who is like an all but dissertation kind of grad student, and he answers this help wanted ad from a disgraced cryptozoologist who's just been sent a video of a unicorn sighting off of this island off the coast of Iceland. And so he hires this assistant, and they go to investigate this unicorn sighting, and shit gets way weird way fast.
That sounds awesome.
I'm all
Yeah,
in. You
I
said the
love that
magic
book.
word
I love it.
unicorn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
Candace.
need a signed copy of that sent to me like
yeah, right on.
tomorrow, cause
Yeah,
Oh, that's not fair. If
that's
only you get
awesome.
one.
I'm
Yeah,
all in. All in.
yeah, I love it. I love the book, and no one. Again, it's like Trisha, Meerkat Press, and I, like, we worked as much as we could, but like the world just suddenly got way different really fast, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it didn't get any traction. And so I'd
Yeah.
love if people would check that book out.
Okay. There you go. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a rhetorical question or not, but I had only a short story come out during like COVID's peak.
Yeah.
It was in 2020, and it's an anthology called Corona Nation Street. I don't know why it's called that, but mine's just a one. I think it's 1,000, 1,500 words story called the thing in Ron's head. and it's just a fun. I based it off of Ronald
Awesome.
Kelly, and
Uh,
he read it. Him and his wife Joyce had a kick out of it. It's just this like parasite that gets stuck in your head and
yeah,
burrows through there, and he just goes crazy. But
right.
Ron thought it was funny, so I'm like, whatever.
There you go. Yeah, totally.
We had a
Right
good
on.
time.
Yeah.
I
We
wish
did
I had
have a
more.
couple people on who
Paul
had
Tremblay,
talked about.
Survivor song.
That is not at
Mhm.
all where I was going with that.
Damn it, thought I had it.
No, but people who had books come out like, March 13th, March 20th, 2020, and just got totally lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
Amakatsu comes to mind. She had a book, I want to say it was The Deep, that came out right around that time,
Yeah.
and just got lost in the fold. But
Right.
it's too bad.
Yeah.
It's a
And
shame
there's
you
like
could
a
have.
lot of good books came out. Yeah. So I love that idea of like kind of rediscovering stuff like from that period that I kind of missed, you know? So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if any, because I have heard that like writers would kind of get the bad end of it, where if they have a book come out, you're what is it? You're only as good as your last book to some
Mhm.
publishers. Like, what happens if your book comes out then, March 2020?
Yeah, totally. Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I don't know personally,
I
but
don't
yeah, that
either.
seems like a real concern.
I don't know if that would have applied widely for that particular point in time,
I hope not.
considering it was a massive global event that
Yeah.
sort of
Right.
You
impacted
get a
everyone.
mulligan on that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, right.
Really had nothing to do with the quality of the writer or the story. It was just no one could go outside.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's true. Like you are only as good as the last thing you wrote or produced or directed, and that's the way the world goes sometimes.
Hmm.
Road
Yeah.
setting
Pickle
covers.
readers. But hey, since you mentioned the unicorn, shameless plug for me because why not? I wrote this little fun little story called The Unicorn Killer.
The unicorn what?
Killer.
Oh, okay.
It's a slasher, and the guy's looking for like inspiration so he could become one of the most famous serial killers of all time. Like, because
Hmm.
he's trying his hardest and no one's paying him any attention, not even the cops, not even the news. Like, they just don't care what he's doing. And he gets his idea, and well, he becomes the unicorn. And suddenly, well, things get weird
There
and
you go.
violent. It's
Yeah.
like a half an hour read, and it's a lot of fun. And his name is Franklin, because why not? And
Yeah.
it's absolutely hilarious. And that went over well. So when you said unicorn, I was all in because it's kind of my thing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
There may or may not be bejeweled unicorn shit in the book. So just so you
I,
know.
I'm already
Yeah.
sold. Like you,
Yeah. There you
I
go.
I'm
like I
already
like the
getting it
cover.
somehow.
Yeah.
I'm getting it.
Cool.
So yeah, it'd
I
be
really
fun.
like the cover.
Yeah. That was another weird thing is I've done all the covers of my books except for Fever House. Um, and so that was a big like oh my gosh, are they going to do a good job? And then this designer Ella Latham, who did she did The Only Good Indians, and she's done a bunch of stuff for Star Wars. She just like that cover is so crazy. It's
Yeah.
so good. You see it across the room, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So I want like
Exactly what
that.
you're looking for too.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything you can tell us about The Devil by Name, or is it like just totally like ruins the end of Fever House for any listeners?
We're gonna start doing like promos and announcements like probably in December, I think. But cover's done. It looks rad. It takes place 5 years after Fever House.
Okay.
So I guess by the time the book comes out, a couple years in the future, technically, but yeah. So
Nice.
yeah, we'll just say that, and then the little synopses will start coming out and all that hoo ha. But yeah, 5 years after the end of the book.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm all in. So we'll have you back on again when that one comes out, so we can
Yeah, there you go. Right on.
go all over that one too, because I need to
Yeah.
find out what happens. So
Yeah, right on. Thanks.
I'm already inviting you.
Yeah,
Not even my show, but that's okay.
right.
You're a part of it.
That's your show.
All right, good. Good to know. Patrick, you've been replaced.
Again. Keith,
Again.
what are you currently reading?
What am I reading? I'm actually reading The Hunger. Al Makatsu's The Hunger.
Oh,
Nice.
nice.
He is
So
awesome.
it's so fun, man. It's so fun. And it's like, that again is like, I really like what she does, where it's like this historical reimagining
Mm.
of, with like this horror or supernatural stuff going on, I think Ben Percy did that with like the Deadlands. It was like a retelling of the Lewis and Clark expedition. And it's just, I love, like, it's so much of what like Fever House is and my stuff is just this like shoehorning of like multiple genres together, like it's so fun.
She does a great. Yeah, I love her work. She's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Candace,
she blurbed the Fever House, and I'm just like, I think she was the first blurb that I got, and I was just like eternally grateful for it.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Candace, what are you currently reading?
What am I reading? I'm reading Pray for Dawn by Christopher Michael Blake. Picked this up last weekend in New Jersey. Book's
Nice.
fantastic, and he was kind and gracious enough to not only I purchased the one, but then he gave me all his other ones.
Nice.
So, score free books.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will let you know how it is next show.
Awesome. Brennan, what are you currently reading?
I just finished Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison.
Nice.
Um,
Who is it?
she's one of my favorites, but she's got such a confidence to her writing. Like I don't even really know how to describe it, but just her voice is just so, here's the damn story, sit back and listen. And I love shit like that.
Yeah.
So this is kind of her spin on, cults and satanic panic, and I had a great time with it.
That's
I'm
awesome.
also wrapping up Nestlings by Nat Cassidy, which is really cool. It's kind of Salem's Lot and Rosemary's Baby, a little bit of each. It's cool. He if you read Mary, Nat's not really afraid to kind of blow the doors off and make crazy shit happen. And this is no
What's a good
different.
starting spot for him?
I think those was only 2 books.
Okay.
If I had to pick one, I would say start with Nestlings. It's out on the 31st.
Okay.
And we will be talking Nat in a couple weeks, I believe.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But Mary's awesome too.
Cool.
That's kind of it's almost like his version, his spin on Carrie.
Nice.
Patrick, how about you?
So I recently started the Creature feature. It's like a bunch of novellas on Amazon. Joe Hill.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Mallerman. I just started Joe Hill's. I like it. It feels like it's kind of in the vein, not storyline wise, but the like tone, I guess, feels like Rosemary's Baby. He's just a great writer, so it's really good. It's called the Pram.
Right.
Yeah. Where can people follow you?
So I am on. Every day I decide whether or not to like dump Twitter. Just given the nature of like political ramifications of shit. I'm still there, and I can be found on Instagram and Blue Sky as well. And then you can also just go to keithrosson.com, and there's a bunch of like free stories on there and links to my books and various like essays and stuff. And like I wrote a nonfiction piece about being a legally blind boxer and stuff like that. So there's all kinds of stuff to check out. So
that sounds awesome. Candace, where can people follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. My website is Uncomfortably Dark. indie horror review site there. And on TikTok, you'll find us also under Uncomfortably Dark. So,
cool. Brennan,
where can people follow me?
Yes.
Well, I'm not giving out my home address after the last time you asked that question. That caused a lot of problems.
They can message me and I'll tell them.
The twist that stalker was really me.
Yeah. I knew that tree didn't hide you very well.
Few trees do.
No, at Brennan LaFaro on all the places except for TikTok. Won't do it.
There you go.
Not happening.
You will eventually.
But right now, not happening.
If you want to follow me,
Patrick.
If you want to follow me, PR McDonough at Twitter, the show, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I think that's it. Do you have any final thoughts, Keith?
No. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely,
it's super fun.
Yeah, for sure. I'll jump in. My final thoughts are: appreciate your time. Fever House is awesome, and now I'm gonna check out. It's 7 Roads, right?
No, it's Road 7.
Oh, damn it! Mixed up the words.
Yeah, that's all right.
Road 7. Okay.
About the unicorn.
Yeah, and it's got a UFO on the cover.
Yeah.
Brennan. Yeah. Brennan, final thoughts.
Yeah, and I'm gonna echo Patrick. Appreciate your time. Fever House is awesome. I am so psyched to pick up the next one. I cannot wait to see after the journey that you took us through on the first one where you're going this time around.
Yeah,
that's going to be exciting.
That's always the weird thing is like people are like, sequels are, again, we talked about like somebody is always unhappy. Like there are going to be people that are stoked on it, and then people are like, oh, he dropped the ball big time on this one. You know what I mean? So,
once again, there's no pleasing everyone. There are people who are, who won't touch the book for 8 months, who are saying, I can't wait to read it so I can tell him he dropped the ball.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Yeah.
Candace, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Well, you already know I love the book because I already invited you back. So therefore, I need to know what's going to happen next. Let's not drop the ball, okay, sir? Because
there you go.
I'm going to judge you if you do.
No problem.
No. Thank you for your time. The story is really great. So for all you fans out there and anyone watching the show, please go buy the book because I kid you not, it will check all the boxes. So thank you, and it's been fun, and we will talk to you as soon as you finish the next one.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Next episode is with Elena Urquhart. I'm pretty sure that's how you say your last name.
Urquhart.
I'm gonna need some lessons.
Elena Urquhart.
There we go.
Just leave my voice in there. Edit it so it sounds like you said it.
And I'll be talking to myself. I could do that. Anyways, Pat Brennan, she's the co-host of Morbid Podcast, and she wrote a book. So we're gonna check it out. We're gonna talk to her about that. And as always, you have many choices in podcasts. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye-bye.